Welcome to Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared, and we're about to play Bora Bora. Let's take a look. I'll show you how. Feel free to pause the video as needed to follow along with your copy of the game. My goal is this video can not only teach you to play, but can be shown at the game table to help set up and teach the game at your next game session. As part of that goal, I've added chapter timestamps in the description to the different sections of the tutorial to easily recap relevant rules for you. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell below the video so you don't miss any of my latest content. In the game of Bora Bora, players will be using dice to select a variety of actions that take place on the main board and their personal boards. Journey across the mysterious island world of Bora Bora, building huts and populating them with men and women, discover fishing grounds, collect shells, send priests to temples, and gather offerings to gain favor with the gods. This is a game where just about everything you can do earn you victory points, so planning ahead and efficiently taking actions each round will lead you to victory. The first thing you'll notice about the game is how bright and colorful it all is. The gameplay is just as colorful with how much you can do with just a few dice. So let's take a look at how to set it up. Place the main game board in the middle of the table. Collect the 7 action tiles, as you'll need to sort out which ones you'll be needed in your game depending on the player count. All 7 are used in a 4-player game, so they can each be placed face up below the board. You'll see the helper, temple, build, man, woman, land path, and water path tiles. In a 3-player game, the land and water path tiles combine to 1 tile, the land and water path tile. In a 2-player game, only 5 tiles are used, as the man and woman tiles are combined into a single man or woman tile. Next, shuffle up the 12 fish tiles and place them face up onto the game board in the map section on each fish space. There's a fish space adjacent to each of the 12 regions. Create supply piles on the table of the various building materials, shells, and offering tokens. Collect all the blue man tiles and orange female tiles and shuffle them into face-down stacks or supply piles. Draw 6 from each to put face up one at a time onto the blue and orange spaces for them at the bottom right corner of the game board. Shuffle the 24 jewelry tiles and place them all out onto the 4x6 display on the main board randomly. They should be face up. Now you can shuffle the gods cards together into a face-down pile next to the game board. Draw and reveal the top 5 cards to create a display. Let players choose which color they want to be from the 4 available. Everyone should take a player board in their color with 12 huts and 6 building tiles in their color, and the rest of their pieces. The huts are placed onto the hut spaces on their player board. 2 are placed in the 12th space. The building tiles are placed dice side up on the 6 spots for them on their board. Each player should start with 1 god tile kept here on the board. You'll have 3 dice in your color, which you can keep next to the board. Additionally, place your 4 priests next to your board. Each player should be dealt 2 god cards from the top of the deck to be added to their hand. Keep it secret from other players. Everyone starts with 2 offering tokens kept next to their boards, and lastly, each player takes a random turn order tile from the pool. You won't need some for lower player counts, so those can return to the box. Also, any unused player color pieces can return to the game box. The player who drew the number 1 should place one of their discs on the victory point track at 0. The player with number 2 places theirs at 1 point, number 3 at 2 points, and so on. Then look at the status track. Place everyone's discs in a stack at 0 in reverse turn order, so the first player's disc should be on top with the last player's on the bottom. The green tokens are tasks, but there are 7 light green ones that you need to pull out from the rest first. Shuffle the 7 together. Then shuffle all the dark green task tiles together into a face-down draw pile or stack. Give each player 1 random light green tile and 2 dark green ones. Any unused light green tiles should then return to the game box. These 3 tasks should go face up onto their player boards in the indicated spaces for them at the bottom. The 4th space with the check mark is used to store completed tasks. From the supply of dark green task tiles, draw 6 and place them face up into these spaces for them on the main board. If playing a 2-player game, only place 4, and a 3-player game, place 5. Place 6 of the god tiles into a stack on the temple space on the main board. In reverse player turn order, each player gets to place one of their huts onto an empty building space on one of the 4 regions next to a 1-fish tile on the island map. Depending on where the hut is placed, they should collect from the general supply the resource corresponding to the one on their region. It will be either a building material like sand, wood, or stone, or an offering token. Then they should place the building material collected onto a free matching ceremony space on their player board, or keep the offering token next to their board if they collect that. With that, everything is set up and ready to go. Players already have their turn order number in front of them for the first round. Turns always follow who has the turn tokens. Bora Bora plays over 6 rounds, each round following 3 phases, A, B, and C. There's a summary on the bottom of the game board to remind you. In Phase A, everyone simultaneously rolls their 3 dice, then in turn order will use 1 die at a time to take actions. Additionally, players may do god actions on their turn if they can and want to, which don't use dice. The gods allow players to get specific advantages during certain phases of the turn or in conjunction with certain actions. At the start of the round, the first player chooses one of their rolled dice and places it on an action tile of their choice to carry out the action. The next player does the same until all players have placed their 3 dice. The action tiles set up at the beginning of the game are the available places for dice. However, when placing a die on a tile, you can only place a die showing a pip value lower than the lowest value currently sitting on the tile. The only way to ignore that rule is to use the blue god ability, which I'll explain later. In Phase B, players in turn order may use the ability of 1 man and or 1 woman on their player board. The order of using them, or even activating them at all, is up to each player. Remember, at most, 1 woman and 1 man ability. However, if you have women with identical powers on the right of their tile, or men with identical powers, those can be combined into 1 stronger ability during this phase. The men and women's abilities can never be combined together. Phase C is the last part of the round, which has bonuses awarded, jewelry purchased, tasks taken and fulfilled, and turn order assigned. In Phase C, look at the right side of the main game board for the things to be dealt with and go from top to bottom. Always start with the status track. Each player scores the number of victory points that corresponds to the space their status marker is below, between 0 and 15 points. Anywhere you see the pink flower and numbers in it, that refers to victory points earned. Then all players' discs reset back to 0, making sure the player furthest back is on the bottom of the stack and the player furthest ahead is on top. Based on this new stack order, redistribute the turn order tiles. From top to bottom, first through fourth. After the status track, score the temple with the priests each player has put there. In the first 2 rounds, each priest is worth 1 point. In rounds 3 and 4, they're worth 2 points, and in the final 2 rounds, each are worth 3 points. The player who has the most priests on the temple gains a new god tile added to their player board. If there's a tie, whoever's priest is furthest left breaks the tie. If no one has priests at the temple, the top god tile is removed from the game. Next, in the new player turn order, players will get to buy 1 jewelry tile from the current round's column. Each piece of jewelry has a cost shown on it in a number of shells. Pay the shells to the supply and take the chosen jewelry tile to your board. Put it in a face-down stack on the spot for it. These score at the end of the game. Players can choose not to buy a tile for whatever reason, and their turn is simply skipped. Any leftover jewelry tiles are discarded. These 6 jewelry columns are a great visual reminder of what round the game is currently in. After resolving jewelry purchases, players in turn order will now get to complete 1 of their 3 task tiles shown on their board. If the player can't complete any one of their 3 tasks, they must choose one to discard out of the game and score nothing. If a player can complete a task without help, they score 6 points. If they use the assistance of the yellow god to complete it, they score 4 points. Place completed tasks face down on the checkmark where they'll stay until the end of the game. Then, each player in turn order chooses a new task tile from the game board and adds it to the newly freed up space on their board. This should also happen during round 6. For any questions on what a task requires, the back of the rulebook offers a full list of every task you'll find in the game. Most are self-explanatory. This completes Phase C and a full round. Return to the game box the remaining 2 unchosen tasks and any remaining men and women tiles. Then refill the tasks and refill the men and women. Players can now retrieve their 3 dice from the action tiles and proceed to the next round. During the first phase of a round, players will be able to assign dice to do actions. There's one action that's always available to all dice regardless of their die values. In the upper left corner of the board is a fishing action space. Placing your die there gives you 2 points. It's kind of the catch-all spot to make sure everyone gets to place all of their rolled dice. The rest of the actions are found on the action tiles, and players must abide by the rule of placing a lower valued die than the lowest one already on it. Playing a blue God card ability will allow you to ignore that rule though. The expand action tile will let you add your huts to the island's various regions, only to adjacent regions from your existing huts. Depending on your player count, you may have the water and land expand action tiles separately, or just one tile that lets you do both. The pip value of the die used for the action lets you build a hut across a border showing that number or lower. Check the dice and arrow icons on the map surrounding your huts. You can place one of your huts from your player board onto the adjacent region on the build spot and take the resource or offering token shown there. If someone else's hut is already on the build space, slide it off and put yours there. Keep everyone's huts in the region though. Remember to respect if it's a land expansion or water expansion taking place if you've got those specific action tiles out in your game. Expanding to a desert region gives you a sand material, forest gives wood, and mountains give stone. Place the new material on an empty space on your construction area of your player board, matching the type. Immediately during your expansion, you are allowed to use a red god ability to score points equal to the number on the fish of the new region. These are valued between 1 and 6. The man and woman action tiles allow you to take either a man or woman from the board's display. In some player counts, there's a man action tile and woman action tile separately, while in other cases you'll have one action tile that lets you do either. Look at the dice value icons shown on the board between the men and women tiles. You may take one tile from a spot at your dice's pip value or lower. However, you must have an open spot for them when you take them. They are placed in the upper part of an empty spot on your board, free of any huts. The build action tile lets you move one of your dice buildings to your construction area and score points and gain a fire bonus. In order to do this, you must have 2 adjacent spaces in the construction area occupied by materials. Then choose one of the dice building tiles below equal to or less than the value of the die you use for the action. So if you used a 6, you could choose any one of them to build with, but with a value 1, you can only build the number 1 building. Replace the 2 materials with the building tile, returning the materials to the supply. Then score points for the construction depending on which round of the game you're in. In the first 2 rounds of the game, building these scores you 10 points. In the 3rd and 4th rounds, score 7 points. In the final 2 rounds, score 4 points. Lastly, you get to activate the fire bonus. Look at your player board at the reference on the left for what the fire bonus is. You gain 2 things. First, take either a god card or offering, then take a shell or gain a status. Whenever drawing a god card, you can take from the display or off the top of the deck. Immediately replace the taken card from the display each time. There's no hand limit for the god cards. The temple action tile lets you place one of your 4 priests onto the temple on a spot with that number of pips or less. If there's a priest on the spot you want to go, you slide them to the right along with any others that would be pushed. Sometimes this pushes a priest off the board, which then goes back to the owner's supply to be used again. After placing your priest, immediately take a fire bonus. This is the same fire bonus given when building. The fire icon is shown on the temple track spaces to remind you to do it. The last action tile is the helper action, showing the hand holding a die. When placing a die here, you can spend those pips on various things. Take a look at the top left of your player board. There's a small area in the brown that shows you the things you can get for your pips taking this action. The top 3 options are a 1-to-1 ratio. The bottom options each cost 2 pips to gain. So for a single pip, you can gain a victory point. You can also spend a pip to shift a man or woman tile downwards on your player board. Each person can only shift down once in the game. When shifting down a man, he gets status tattoos. You get to increase your status disc on the game board 1 space for each status symbol shown on the left of his tile. When landing on a space where another player's discs are, place yours on top. When shifting down a woman, she collects shells for you, which are kind of the currency in the game. Collect a number of shells from the supply equal to the number of shells shown on the left of her tile. Keep them near your board. Your shell collection is open information. The rest of the options cost 2 pips each. You can always spend your die pips on whatever you want in any distribution of 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 items. For 2 pips, you can take 1 offering token from the supply. Keep it next to your board as well. This is also open information. You can draw 1 god card or even take a building material of your choice. There's sand, stone, and wood. Each material you take would cost 2 pips. You'll want to put the material on a matching empty space in your construction area. If you take a material that you don't have an empty space for, you can still gain it, but keep it next to your board. You may need to do this to complete a task. Lastly, you can spend 2 pips in the helper action to relocate one of your huts. Simply move one of your huts down to the 12th space on your board. It can hold any number. The reason you may do this is to free up spots for men and women to be placed in. Otherwise, you'd be better off expanding onto the island regions to get huts off of your board. It's just faster to move them as part of the helper action. During Phase B, everyone gets to activate up to 1 man and 1 woman ability from people sitting in their player board area. It doesn't matter whether they are at the top or shifted down already. The abilities of the people are always on the right side of their tile. The left side shows what they give you when they are shifted down as part of the helper action. All the man tiles provide status and all the women provide shells. They can never be reset back after shifted. The center of your player board shows every possible man and woman tile and their abilities you'll find. Remember, the abilities are the ones able to be used during Phase B of each round. If you have 2 of the same ability with the same gender, they can be done together as 1 stronger action. These 2 abilities signify you can expand a hut through a die 2 or less path. 1 type indicates a land expansion, 1 a water expansion. With 2 man tiles with this ability, the stronger action would let you do an expand up to value 4. Same if you had 2 women. The next 2 abilities here are to take the man or woman action as if you used a value 3 die, so you can take 1 new man or 1 new woman from the display when activating them. If you have 2 of these abilities on the same gender, they can be used together for a stronger action, letting you collect a new man or woman as if using a value 6 die. The building ability on these lets you do a free build action as if you used a value 3 die, so as long as you've got the materials on the board, you can build the 1, 2, or 3 buildings as part of that free action. Any of these can be combined for a stronger action. Let's look at the rest. This ability lets you take a material of your choice from the supply to your construction area. This ability lets you move a hut to the 12th space. This one gives you 2 points. This gives you a god card. This gives you an offering token. This gives you 1 status, and the last one gives you a shell. When doing a stronger action by combining multiple together on the ones that give you 1 thing, you repeat it, so you'll gain more shells, status, cards, points, materials, or move additional huts as 1 action during Phase B. I believe there's 3 copies of each ability for each gender in the game. To play any god card, you must give up an offering token. However, you can instead spend a collected god tile to trigger the effect of any god without the need to pay an offering. Using a god tile doesn't require a card. From your hand of god cards, choose 1 to use and pay an offering token to the supply and resolve the god's effects. Should you have 2 of the same god card in your hand, you can choose to play both of them together with an offering and choose any god ability you want. There are reminders of how all this works on the left of your player board. Anytime the god card draw pile runs out, shuffle the discards and create a new face-down draw deck. So what do the different cards do? Each god has a unique idol statue and color to them, and a short icon display as to what their ability is. The player boards all show which phases the god's abilities can be used, A, B, or C. The blue god can be used in phase A in conjunction with placing one of your rolled dice on an action tile. Use it to place your die to an action tile even if the die's value is the same as or greater than the lowest die value on the tile. One god card must be used per die. The white god can be used in phase A to treat any one of your dice as a 6 when placed on an action tile. Don't actually change the value to a 6 though. During phases A or B, you may play a red god while expanding your territory on the islands. When placing a new hut onto a region's building space, the red god allows you to immediately score the fish tile touching it. Score as many points as the value of the fish. Don't move or discard the fish tiles. Any player can score these throughout the game by using red gods. Players are restricted to using only one red god card ability per region, so each fish tile can score at most one time per player. During phase B, when players trigger man and women abilities, play a green god ability to either double the effect of the man or woman you're using, or activate a second, different man or woman ability type. If using it to double the effects of a man or woman ability, double to the total amount of the ability, including other identical men or women as applicable. So let's say you've got multiple women tiles with the Move Hut ability. Add those up first, then play the green god card ability to double that. While trying to complete a task during phase C or at the end of the game, you can use a yellow god card ability for assistance. Using one will replace one of the task's requirements and let you score it. However, you'll score 4 points instead of the full 6. Only one yellow god card can be used per task. Remember, for each god card played, you must pay an offering with it. The end of the game is triggered after round 6. After resolving the tasks during phase C of the 6th round, players will get to complete the final 3 tasks still on their board. This is how it's possible to have 9 tasks completed. Normally, only 1 task can be completed each round. This means that the newly taken task from the final phase of the game can be completed immediately along with the 2 others left on their board. Resolve completing them as usual, earning 6 points each done without help and 4 points if using a yellow god ability. Completed ones go into the checkmarked space. Discard the rest. As for final scoring, players can follow along by looking at the scoring summary at the bottom left of their player boards. First, gain 2 points for each unused god tile you've collected. Then score the fish tiles adjacent to regions. Only players' huts currently sitting on the building space in the region scores the fish value. Then reveal all your purchased jewelry and add up their point total. Score these as well. There are 6-point bonuses awarded for maxing out on various things. Anyone who completed 9 tasks gains 6 points. Purchasing 6 jewelry tiles scores a bonus 6 points. Covering up each space in the construction area of their board scores 6 points, whether with materials, building tiles, or a combination. If you've placed all 6 building tiles, you'll get an extra 6 points. If you've placed all 12 of your huts on the island regions, you'll get 6 points. And if you've filled all 12 spaces of your board with men and women tiles, score an additional 6 points. Remaining god cards, offerings, shells, and building materials aren't worth anything at the end of the game. Whoever now has the most victory points is the winner. If there's a tie, the winner is the player who went earlier in turn order in the last round after the status track adjusted the final time. Keep the rulebook handy and check BoardGameGeek.com for FAQs and extra content. The Meeple Mentor channel is now part of the board game community, the Gateway Network, made up of great upcoming board game content creators. The network includes Instagrammers, podcasters, YouTubers, artists, and more. Head to thegatewaynetwork.com to support new and independent board gamers. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Like and subscribe if you found this teaching helpful. Stick around to watch another Learn to Play video. And remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.